It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. So, a couple of weeks back, I had a look at a scuffed tofu. So, you should be able to see a link for it somewhere on the page there, where I basically bought a tofu that already had its anodization stripped from it. And I thought it was a really fantastic opportunity for me to basically do a paint mod on an aluminium case. I'd never done it before, and because I've got a little airbrush kit, which I've also previously looked at and reviewed, link somewhere over there as well, hopefully, if I can get my editing right, I thought I'd give it a try. Now, the things that I didn't know, and the things that I still don't really know, is what's a really good way of painting metal, painting aluminium. I've never really been into that space. You know, I know people have spray canned their cases before. I know people have done, plaster dipping and all sorts of other techniques, but for me, first time. So I just want to walk you through what I did over the last week or so with the bottom half of the scuffed tofu. And then I guess we'll talk about what the end result is and where we're going to go with it. So, I've got some pictures because I didn't take video footage simply because it was easier for me to go with the pictures. Now, when it was received, and you would have seen it in the video as well, it was actually quite shiny. I don't know how they took the anodize off it, but it was actually quite polished. It did have a bit of a blemish mark that you can see there, not really quite sure what that was, and they've taken the feet off it. So I've got a sanding block, and this is 400 grit sandpaper on it, which I had, and essentially you can see that is how shiny it was, that surface texture on it. And then after I hit it with the 400 and sanded it quite evenly, it's a lot duller. That sort of glossy finish has been taken off, and this has been washed, so you can still see a bit of the water on that to get rid of all of that possible residue, and it's lost that gloss, and it's given that surface a lot more, I suppose, grip for any paint primer that I was planning on applying to it. So I'm just using an airbrush kit here, and you can see it's a surface primer. It's just acrylic model stuff. There's the airbrush and a little paint jar, and there's the actual case there, just sitting in a box out on my balcony because I don't have a extraction system, and that's it, covered with white primer. So I left that as per instructions for 24 hours for it to set up before I put another layer of color on it. And I did actually mask off the inside space where the brass slider moves, and I discovered actually, as part of taking that apart, the magnet in the case that holds the slider isn't even stuck in. It actually fell out, so I'm really glad I didn't lose it. So I masked that off to prevent paint getting inside where that magnet sits, and also the thread there, simply because I didn't want it gum up with the actual paint or the primer. Wasn't too concerned about the main thread holes here because they're huge and they're probably really easy to clean out if they did get blocked. So moving along, I hit it with a pastel pink. So the comments from the video on the scuffed tofu, only one person responded to me. Like, over 100 people watched that video. Only one person told me what colors they wanted, and they said a pastel, maybe a bright red. So, my daughter loves pink. She's at that age where everything is pink and unicorns and fairies. So I mixed up some pink. So what you're seeing here is a 1 drop of Ferrari red in 20 drops of flat white in the airbrush range. Gave it a bit of a mix, and this is actually 2 coats of it. I went through a lot of paint. I don't really know how to quantify it, but it was multiple refills of the little paint well there to get this color, and I was spraying quite far away. So I don't know, really what's the best way of applying it technique-wise or anything like that. I just read the instructions, in regards to using that in general for large areas to be spraying around, 20 centimeters, which is quite far, away, and it wasn't getting a lot of really great coverage. So in terms of efficiencies, how much I've lost into the space around it, you can see on the actual egg carton there, on the other egg carton behind it, in the air, I don't know. So I let this dry for another day before I went to mask it. And I couldn't really think of a good pattern on what to mask it with. Now, the darkening that you can see on this side is actually just shadows more than anything else, and you'll see that when we actually have a look at the end result. But I thought about just something really simple, geometric, and I used a plain painter's masking tape. Now, this isn't the blue stuff, which is the better stuff, like the 3M branded stuff. It's the usual sort of masking tape that I normally use, which is this stuff. It's Behr brand interior decorator masking tape. So I applied it and just took some basic measurements and I masked it off so it would just be like this. So the outside perimeter is going to stay pink, then there's going to be a box of red, and then the inside strip will be pink as well. And I just decided, because I already had pulled out and I'd already used the Ferrari red, it would be kind of a complementary color for it, and also because of the comment asking for a bright red. So I set that up, put the tape down, and then I sprayed it with that Ferrari red. It actually looks really nice here because it's really bright, but in reality it's actually a lot darker than that. You can also see my technique is obviously lacking because there's some really sort of dark oversprayed patches in around a couple of different places, but it was really, really hard. It was really hard to see how much paint was actually going on because I was spraying at an angle into a box. It wasn't an ideal scenario, and because it was still wet and the reflection from the outdoor lighting, I found it really challenging to know how much paint was actually going on. And this was also it was 2 coats to get this, and I also did the sides and the front, the back of it. So that's what I did. And then I let this cure out also for a day before I took the masking tape off. And we'll switch down to the desktop now and we can have a look at the end result. And the end result is this. So I guess the first thing that's really blatantly obvious, besides the fact that you got a red square there and the masking isn't perfect because there's some bodgy corners, is the fact that there is a great piece of paint missing. So Mr. Interior Decorating masking tape, Behr brand, okay, from Norton or Saint whatever you're running, Saint Gobain, too strong for this paint. And probably also the surface just wasn't grippy enough and the primer didn't have enough strength to hold on. But what I found really interesting, I suppose, about all the paint that came off is it's all related to an edge. All that paint, and this peeled off and it was connected to the edge paint. There's a tiny little fleck here that's sort of come off in the middle, but the rest of it, all the paint that's actually come off, which the reflections are killing it at the moment, but all the paint that actually broke is actually related to an edge surface. All along that front edge there, it's all along the edge corner there. That is an edge loss there. That's edge. All of that's edge. That corner bit there is lost from an edge, and that little chip there as well is also lost from an edge. So where the sections were really flat and the tape was actually solidly down and flat, like this middle section, none of that lifted off at all. It was really clean. The only anomaly is this spot right there in that flat section. So, as far as it goes, it was a learning experience. You can see I didn't do a fantastic job of masking the edge there either, because some of that paint got underneath that edge and it did bleed. And similarly over here, we got some red from the sides there that bled through. The crispness of, that inside edge there, you can see there's a bit of a bleed there, a bit of a bleed down here. So look, first time that I've done this, anything of this nature that was bigger than a keycap, right, when I tested that airbrush set. So I'm actually kind of happy with the end result. But I've only done one half of the case. Now, I deliberately took notice of how much paint was used for this pink ratio, and this Ferrari red is just flat out straight from the bottle. So there's no issues with replicating that color if I wanted to. But the question is, do I fix this? How do I fix this? Do I take all of the paint off and start again and prime it more? Do I go up in sandpaper roughness? Do I go down in sandpaper roughness? How rough do I get it? A friend of mine was talking to me because he does modeling paint as well, and he showed me a video from J2 Sense that was using a self-etching primer, and that's got probably compounds in it like acids or something that will actually etch the metal that it's being applied to, and then it also deposits a primer at the same time for that adhesion. This stuff, because it's designed primarily for plastic models, it probably doesn't have that, but reading on their webpage, it says it's suitable for metals. So I took that and I ran with it, and you know what? It gave okay results. Probably not designed for such large flat surfaces. So what do you think? What should I do? What direction do I go from here? I could leave this as it is. I don't mind, and I've got some clear coat spray in matte that I can just hit it over it with a number of coats to seal it in and protect it, and just leave it as it is. I could sand it, scrape it back all the way and start again, and then maybe do some different colors. And of course, I still have the top piece. I still have the top half of this case with its integrated plate. I'd have to take the PCB off it as well, but I can clean that up and paint it to suit. So, this is where I'm going to leave this first video on this, but I would love to get your feedback in the comments below. Tell me where I went wrong. Tell me about, what techniques should I be applying, and what kind of distance should I be doing this at? What are the things that I need to be looking out for? Should I be letting it dry longer? Should I be using a different tape compared to this interior design, this interior decorating masking tape, which is my go-to masking tape for everything else that I do? Let me know. And I suppose, whatever happens to this keyboard at the end of it, I was thinking of maybe using it as a major milestone giveaway. So, major milestone for this channel now is going to be 5,000. We're still 300 plus subscribers away. But if we get to that 500 point, I'd be more than happy to give away something nice, which if I custom painted this scuffed tofu and, gave it a bit of a different history and life to it, then, it could be something considered as that 5,000 milestone giveaway. So, look, let me know below your thoughts, techniques, concerns, more color options, and we'll take it from there. So hopefully we'll get some interesting things for me to read and consider, and what to do for the next part of painting my scuffed tofu. Right, that's it. Thanks very much for coming along and checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing the process and what I did to this. If you like this kind of stuff and you're new to the channel, of course, there's always the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons. Otherwise, yeah, take care of yourselves. And, of course, as usual, until next time, happy clacking.